Good evening and welcome to the December 12th, 2022 Planning Board meeting. If you could please first stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, first we have some correspondence. Anybody want to discuss in there?
No.
Nope.
Yeah.
All right. We have meeting minutes for November 28th, 2022. Any issues, corrections?
Didn't see any? None that I saw.
Jim coming tonight? Or? All right, if there's no objections or corrections, do I have a motion to approve the November 28th, 2022 meeting minutes?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Do I have a motion to move in the work session portion of the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
I really want to move you guys last, but. All right, first on the agenda is 79 Summerston Road. This is a town board referral. Address is the same. How are you?
Good evening. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, town staff, and council. My name is David Gessel, and I'm the engineer of record for this project, proposed at 79 Somerston Road. I'm joined here tonight with my partner, Frank Diodati, who will help you with providing additional visual of the project. By way of background, the applicant is proposing to replace an existing 27-foot diameter above-ground swimming pool with a new 16 by 40-foot prefabricated fiberglass in-ground pool. The property in the rear yard where the pool was proposed contains both town and New York State regulated wetlands and partially falls within the FEMA designated special flood hazard area. As the property contains wetlands, Town Code Section 178 regulates development in the wetland and controlled wetland buffer areas and situations where permits may be granted administratively or by the approving board, at the approving board level. As this project is proposed within the 50-foot wetland buffer area, the latter applies. The discussion tonight is in continuation of this board's review of the project that took place on November 28th, for which we did not attend. Since that meeting, the applicant has received and appreciates review memorandum drafted by the town planner, dated December 5th, that summarized key questions and comments raised during that meeting. We're here before you tonight to present the project and provide additional background information and clarification to some of the comments that were raised on the 28th. In an effort to expedite this conversation, we did prepare a written letter to the board ahead of this meeting, along with a set of revised plans that address some of the comments. As you're aware, the property for 79 Somerston Road is situated on 17,653 square feet in the R1-20 residential zoning district and is currently developed with a single family residence. Developed features of the lot include a rear patio, elevated deck, walkways, tool shed, and a paved driveway that can accommodate 4 off-street parking spaces. The grade of the property is modestly sloped from northwest to southeast and is fairly landscaped with trees, vegetative plantings, and lawn areas. As the property contains both New York State and local wetlands, as well as a FEMA special flood hazard area, additional approvals will be required. The area for wetlands is heavily wooded and is consistent with adjacent wetland areas in the neighborhood. Prior to this review, the applicant did appear before the town zoning board and received variances for the construction of an attached garage situated where the current driveway is located. And prior to that, there were other building permit approvals issued for the rear patio and elevated wooden deck. The current project before you did also appear before the Conservation Board back in November. In January, just to provide a little bit more background to some of the questions that were raised at the previous meeting, just want to give you some background on the wetlands delineation and how it was performed. So in January of 2022, the owner did commission environmental consultant Steve Marino of Tim Miller Associates to inspect, identify, and stake out the wetlands, as well as establishing the 50-foot and 100-foot wetland buffer areas. The limits and determination from that field visit is captured and incorporated on these set of drawings. As part of the approval process, this consultant most likely will assist us with obtaining the New York State DEC wetland permit. As to the provisions of the local wetland code, Chapter 178, the plan before you does offer mitigation for the disturbance in the buffer area in the form of wetland plantings consistent with this region. Also specified on the set of drawings are a full set of sediment and erosion control measures, including contractor acknowledgement and certification of their requirements to ensure that all precautionary measures are in place. As the subject property contains open lawn areas to the left side and rear yard, contractor access to the rear would not be an issue as work progresses. Protective fencing will also be installed upland of the wetland area as a precautionary measure. In keeping with town code, a conceptual plan to mitigate surface water runoff from the increased impervious coverages coupled with seasonal pool drawdown is proposed in the rear yard. While the project only calls for 76 square feet of net increased impervious coverage, the proposed stormwater mitigation plan will capture 100% of the improved area of the pool. Design storm that will be utilized would be for the 25-year, 24-hour storm, consistent with New York State DEC design manual, and the owner and ourselves will be planning to perform deep test and percolation testing at a later date. As there's a wetland situated, in the rear yard nearby, we do anticipate there may be a possibility of finding groundwater, a seasonal high groundwater table. So we do propose an alternate design to have stormwater mitigation performed in the front yard in lieu of Cultex in the rear yard, and proposed our low-profile 150 series Cultex. And I think that's about it. If anybody has any questions, we'd like to open up to the board for comments and questions.
Any questions from the board? Not here.
The only thing I would note with this, the bulk of the improvements, including the house, are within the 100 feet buffer area of the wetlands. So this is a largely disturbed site. I believe this site was set up that way originally when the subdivision was created. They knowingly set, the housing locations and the rear yard locations in the buffer area. I certainly think the plan that you presented is an adequate, offset for your further intrusion in the buffer, or changing it from open space to impervious surfaces, which is, I think, the major concern. And I think it would, I would defer to Mr. Waterhouse and see, from the Conservation Board's perspective, that it maintains the function of the buffer in protecting the wetlands to the rear, which you're not doing anything to. So, from my point of view, for this board, I don't see any problems here.
I concur.
Okay.
I have no issue with it. No issue.
I had a question about the garage. Apparently, there was an approval for a garage structure that is not being shown on your current plan. So is the garage going to be built? Because it's my understanding it's not built currently.
Yeah.
Is that accurate?
That is correct. So the plans, how we kind of presented to you in multiple pages, the first page itself, if we scroll back, shows you existing conditions as is today.
Right.
So if you folks went out to visit the site, that would be the plan, that would be the features that you see currently in the field.
Right.
Since I think about October, give or take, the owner did receive zoning variance for the attached garage in the form of setbacks, and has also been issued a building permit to construct the garage. That work has yet to take place.
So the intent is to build what was proposed?
That's what I understand. And as far as the construction of the pool goes, the way the pool is installed, typically you have an excavator in the backyard. You prepare the hole, level the base, gravel, sand, and so forth. And the pool is actually set with aerial crane. They would lift the pool up and over the house and drop it in the hole. So it's a pretty quick process from beginning to end within 2 weeks.
Anything else from the board? Dan, you got anything to add?
Did you want to say something?
Yeah. So we'll go through that.
Yes, you have my memo. I guess
Yep.
the main issue with this is that the site is pretty much all wetlands. It's under our jurisdiction and under the state. So we need to, just make sure step one is to make sure that that's the correct, valid wetland delineation. The applicant's going to have that flagged, and the DEC they actually will certify the map that'll memorialize, I believe, for 3 years, if once it's agreed upon. So, and sometimes our wetlands delineation is different than the state's delineation, which will also play into, if the board or ultimately the town board wants to move forward with this, they'll likely require some level of mitigation. That's I would say is going to be expected. So, so that was the main issue that the planning board and the town board are going to have to deal with.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. John?
If you look at the package, the zoning board passed their variance in October, and this project has been around before that, and I think that the EAF is dated also October. It's my opinion that those two projects, although one has a permit, should be looked at together in terms of their impacts cumulatively. And I think that follows and is required under the secret regulations. Some of the construction that's happening with the project that's already permitted is in the wetland buffer. Now, I will readily reflect that that is largely also being placed on what is now also impervious surface, but nevertheless, there is excavation that has to take place with that. The projects are not really, I would say, separate. Can't be taken separately because of their. They're both known projects, and so my recommendation, my comment to the town board will be to see to it that the impacts of both are taken together, and that the mitigation reflects that those cumulative impacts. And I also concur with Dan's belief that that the wetland flagging needs to be accepted by the town's consultant, which probably should have happened much earlier than today.
Okay.
Those are the two major things that I have.
All right. Any concerns, anything you heard?
Just one thing to add. The wetland scientist, Steve Marino from Tim Miller Associates, did go out there within a year to stake out the wetland, and those flags, there's 7 of them placed at the limits of the wetland. They're still in existence right now to capture, if anybody wanted to view the limits, in person. But we can have those limits memorialized on a map and be forthright in submitting those. And as far as the cumulative effect as to the owner not segmenting the project, we could look at the whole site in totality for both mitigation but also for stormwater management purposes.
All right, great.
I think my presumption would be that the excavation for the pool is going to take place before the garage is built, right? I mean, in order to get the machinery back there and everything else.
Most likely that would be the case. But the phasing of the pool, I mean, the pool can be dug as long as you have access to a machine to get to the backyard. They'll swing the pool over the house with a crane.
Right.
So,
Yeah, so I would agree. It needs to be looked at as like one plan.
Yeah. All right. So we'll get a letter to the board stating, okay. All right,
Okay, great.
all set.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks, guys. All right, next on the agenda, we have SDML Realty LLC. This is a discussion of a site plan, locations 3735 Compound Road. How are you?
You doing?
No, I don't.
Did you guys bring the coffee that we talked about at the town meeting? You forgot again? Trying to get a cup of coffee here. Stay wait.
Right now, we need espresso, we don't need coffee. Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening, how are you?
Good. Ruben Buck, Engineering and Surveying Properties, here on behalf of the applicant. Since our last appearance before the board, we made some modifications to the sketch plan, incorporating some of the board's comments from last meeting. Total number of parking spaces has been reduced by 10, so we went from having 41 parking spaces to 31. We changed the plan to only show angled parking around the building. The spaces on the west side of the building are going to be for customer use, and then the 7 spaces on the east side of the building are going to be for employee use only. The loading area and dumpster were also relocated away from the residences to the rear of the property.
Thank you.
To the east, allowing for adequate room for the truck to pull off to the side, unload, and as well as the garbage truck to pick up trash and allow for a lane for vehicles to pass by the drive-through as well. Some other outstanding items we took care of. We sent the plan over to SHPO. The EAF had a hit for a potential on proximity to archaeological sites. We received a no impact letter from SHPO. We went and relooked at the wetland delineation. We reviewed the code. We asked James Bates from Ecological Analysis LLC to go out and take a look. He's familiar with working in Yorktown and is familiar with the code. His wetland delineation off-site within this road right-of-way was similar to the previous delineation that we provided. The only other area that he marked, and it's not on the sketch plan that we submitted. We received this information today, but there's this small A wetland area in this aisle here. It's approximately 358 square feet in size, and he prepared a wetland delineation report, which I believe was forwarded to you today, and we'll submit it with our next application, indicating that in his opinion that the wetlands on-site and off-site are not regulated by the DEC, ACOE, and doesn't believe they're regulated by the town either. So we would request that the board feels it's appropriate that you have your wetland consultant go out, take a look at the site, and see if they agree with our professional's opinion. Other than that, we'd be happy to discuss any other comments the board may have.
Well, first, thank you very much for, addressing, I think, what we
Yeah.
had brought forward last time. We really do appreciate that.
Appreciate that.
The one thing I did see on the renderings that I thought was great was Yorktown runs on Duncan. Did you see it? On the side there? That's awesome. All right. I'm not used to John being in the audience. Yeah. So I think at this point, they're probably ready. I would like to see this get into the public's notification out to especially the residents behind there as soon as possible. So I think we're probably ready for public informational hearing if there's no other issues. Any thoughts?
Well, looks ready.
Ready to roll?
All right, so Yorktown's unique where we have a public informational hearing,
Okay.
where it's not the public hearing, but it's kind of gets it out to the neighbors, where I'm sure we're going to get some more feedback. As I think we addressed every one of the concerns we originally talked about as I told you the last time, you know, we had an issue with one of the properties next door. You know, really look at the lighting and anything that could affect the back area, landscaping, things that could help the situation. But we'll get you on a public informational hearing. What are we, my God, we're gonna be in 2023?
Yes.
Oh, what? God almighty. So, work with Robin, we'll get you on an agenda, and, just be prepared with all your professionals to answer any questions from the public. All right?
Am I bringing Box of Joe next time?
Thank you very much, and really, we appreciate you really taking everything, you know, we said to heart and making those corrections.
And at this point, we would like to start with detailed design plans. Is that something that the board would like us to proceed with before we have the hearing, or do you anticipate the public having significant enough
What do you
comments that we
think?
should?
The only thing I think they're gonna have issues with are noise and light.
Okay.
Right? Those are, you know, and I think we've seen in the past through some really good engineering and landscape design, a lot of that mitigated. So I think that's what you gotta focus on.
Okay.
But I don't know that there would be any, does anybody have an issue with?
I don't see that it has come back.
Hmm?
For that.
Kiosks that the cars doing the drive-through, which direction are they? Obviously, the houses are directly behind.
Mhm.
Are they very large? Are they going to cause a visual problem with the residents?
I anticipate the grading for this site is going to be cut to the rear of the property, so I imagine the building is going to be set down, you know, viewing from the residences, and I believe that will help with noise. We'll landscape the rear of the property and see what else we can do to mitigate any noise. I don't think the volume from the kiosks would be disruptive.
Yeah, we have noise studies.
Might be a good idea to prepare a profile
Yeah.
from that to the nearest
Line of sight.
residence, just to be able to answer that if the question comes up.
It will come up. Yeah, it's gonna come up. And, you know, some of our solar applications that come in, they do like a view shed. It's been very helpful with those applications. It's something you might think about, especially if there's something to be done above to kind of shield that.
Absolutely.
All right?
So we'll start working on design plans, and it may not be fully complete by the time we have the hearing, but hopefully we'll have something that the public
This is
can.
the first flush.
Don't get too far. Don't go crazy.
Yeah, it's the first flush,
Okay.
you know, just so the residents can get a handle on what's going on. It keeps everybody informed. But this room will probably be packed. So just prepare for that. All right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Great.
And that's what I would focus on.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay. Next on the agenda is Lowe's Pad C. This is a discussion of site plan. Location is 3180 Compound Road. How are you?
Good evening, everyone. How
Hello.
you doing?
Good evening.
We're back here. We were here just a very little while ago. So tonight we're going to deal with some of the issues that you raised, but more importantly, I'm going to bring Abigail up and talk about the landscaping. Landscaping plan, I think, and then there was issue about the I guess some of the turning radiuses. Get to that as well. Abigail?
Starting with me, right?
Yes, the good stuff first. This way we soften them up.
Sounds like a plan.
I got to tell you, the work you did on the other two, it really looks fantastic.
Thank you. Thank
Really-
you so much.
Really
Excellent.
looks nice.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
evening. For the record, my name is Abigail Adams, registered landscape architect, owner A2 Land Consulting out of New Fairfield, Connecticut. Okay, just to start, we may as well just sort of move through the site. And thank you for starting the conversation that way. What I tried to do, and I hope that I achieved, was I took the same planting palette that we used on the other three pads in order to keep consistency throughout the streetscape, the front, and that whole front area of the property there. So there's a lot of the same plant material for that reason. So as you move into the site from Crom Pond Road, you come in, we have some simple sign plantings around the monument, some tall evergreens on the two sides, lower plant material evergreens in front, and then some perennials there that have flowers all season. That's the Coreopsis. Then we have one ornamental tree as you come down the
Sorry.
slope.
Hey, guys,
Yes.
if you want to, thank you. Apologize.
That, no worries there. Ornamental tree there as you're working your way into the site and you're coming down, and then we have a row of columnar beech trees along the access drive that mimics what's happening again on a couple of the other pads there. Then we have a pull-off area to the side. That's that plant bed is being planted with an ornamental tree, and then in the end islands we have a combination of maples. We have the Armstrong maple and then the red sunset maple throughout the site. Other ornamental trees, we also have Zelkova in there. We have dogwood, crab apples, and a plum as well. And then just throughout the site, again, we tried to use a combination of ornamental plantings that are going to give us four-season interest. People are using this all year round. They're looking at it all year round. So we have some red twig dogwoods. We have summer flowering, spring flowering plants, and then we have a lot of evergreens. In the end islands, we use just a very low ground cover juniper so it can handle some of the snow as you're wrapping around when they're doing some of the plowing. And then we have the taller plant material up against the retaining walls, such as hydrangea. And then in places where we have very minimal space between the access drive and the wall, we're just proposing ornamental gravel from a maintenance standpoint. On the south side of the building, we have a small patio, so what we're proposing is some taller evergreen shrubs along the fence line, and then in between the fence line and the access drive with flowering shrubs and perennials on either side of those tall evergreens, just to give a really nice seating area there. It's a small site. We have limited area, but we want everybody to enjoy as you're driving around the drive-through, but also if you're sitting there eating your lunch, you can also have a nice spot to sit and relax. So I think those are the key elements of the landscape plan. And everything else is just maintained lawn. Just keeping it nice and neat and clean all around and above the retaining wall and on the slopes.
Can you explain the reason behind it? Particularly the slope from the curb to the guardrail?
That are just
slope up here, John, along 202.
Right. The idea is just to have open views into the site and just keep nice and easy for maintenance and access. Thank you.
Jump in for a second here.
Hello, everybody. Since we were here last, we made a full submission, full site plan drawings, all the engineered details, including the lighting plan, stormwater management, all the site utility information. Last week we were before ABACA. They took a look at the architecturals, elevations. For the most part, they were they liked the plan, they liked the building. They made a few suggestions. They wanted to see a little more detail on screening of the roof, the rooftop units, and they still have they're okay with the lighting plan. They still have to review the landscape plan. So we've got to come back to them with that. But at this point, the planning board has a pretty complete application as far as we're concerned for the project.
For what, a pre-preliminary?
Public informational?
Public information?
Well, that's a question.
I would I would think that we could probably, given the fact that this site's been vetted over and over again, in particular, you know, there's already been a plan put forward conceptually for this lot. I think maybe we can just jump ahead and.
We should waive it.
I don't even know if you need necessarily a public hearing on it, but if you would like one, I think the informational one is actually just a waste of
We'll find
everybody's
out.
time at this point. But
Have we
it's
done,
a well-developed site.
have we done, public informationals on each of the pads up till now?
I think we, well, I know that, I don't believe so on each of the front pads. I don't believe we did. I think we just, I don't know that we did anything on any of them, quite frankly, but because the only difference between what was approved in the overall site plan and what was done here is just I guess the footprint's different, but this comports with all the required zoning.
So it goes straight to.
I would move then we go straight to a public hearing.
I don't think we need
I don't
an
think we need it.
informational.
I
It's
move
just
we go straight
redundant.
to a public
It's
hearing.
a redundant meeting. Don't you think?
I would, yeah. You know what? I think on something that's novel and new and obviously, but this is essentially just filling out the site that's been vetted over and over again over a half dozen, if not a dozen years. So I really don't.
I agree.
Don't see the point.
I move we go straight to a public hearing.
Okay. John, let me ask you a question. You had it looked like you were concerned about the slope from the road to the lot.
Well, on this site, from the very beginning, there's always been that discussion
Yeah.
about how you view the property.
Right.
And if you recall, even on some of the pads, when we were refining it,
Yeah.
there was a lot of discussion about how the landscaping worked and how it buffered and helped the view of the site from Route 202. So I would suggest that we should take the same, scrutiny on this one, just to make sure that A, it's consistent, A, it's doing what the original discussion wanted to do. I'm not saying that this doesn't. I would just look at, the difference in the grading, what the building is doing. Abaca picked up the rooftop units were always important. So I think the board should look at all of those things. So I'm not suggesting you can't do a public hearing, but, I would be cautious not to get too far ahead of being able to deal with those issues. I think you can do a public hearing with what you have, but some of those details probably need to be looked at, and to the extent that there may be some modifications that improve it, make them.
Yeah, but most of the points are fixed at this point, and that seems to be minor tweaking that which we can do, and especially because the view from this actual lot is kind of tucked in underneath that exit ramp.
Right.
Yeah, so it doesn't have much view from it. You really have to strain yourself. That's why we're proposing a monument sign as well.
Yeah.
Because
I
it
think
comes up because this particular lot is going to come up on you quick, traveling from the east to the west.
And as just one member of the board, I have no issue with the monument sign. I actually think it's
I don't have
very
any issue.
nice. However, I would yield to what John says and have, take a look at that area and see what could be done.
Yeah. No, I think look, you've had plenty of experience with this gentleman, and it's all been good. So
No, listen, and the rest of the place looks fantastic.
yes,
Just want to keep that going.
I'm
And we
sure he
wanna be
appreciates the
consistent.
comments.
So the public hearing would be the 9th
Of January.
January. That's the next one.
Are
Let's
we going
push
to be
for it.
ready for that?
You guys are ready?
Why not?
Okay, and if you have to be tweaked, you tweak it after the public hearing.
Yeah.
No, I think
That's what we usually do
I
now.
think the issues are pretty.
Yeah.
This is not a very complicated.
No,
one.
I think you can get something done before that.
Oh, we appreciate it.
I have another
Absolutely.
question
Oops, sorry.
about the loading or unloading area. I think at our last meeting, I was concerned that you might be having a tractor trailer unloading there. And I noticed on the plans you're showing, I think, a 26-foot straight truck,
Yeah, that's what they.
which makes me more comfortable, but is there some way to make sure it doesn't end up being a tractor trailer? Because that would trigger a concern for me, because I don't think a tractor trailer would fit there very easily. So,
Yeah, basically on at the client or the proposed tenant, Chipotle, has stated that they don't need a tractor trailer to make deliveries to the site, and it's not customary. They use a 30-foot box truck, which is what we've shown on
Okay.
the site plan.
That can go on the site plan as a.
Yeah, as a
You
condition,
can
make that a
document
condition.
That's what we're agreeing to.
Yeah, that's
If
fine.
it's other than that, then I think we should look at it more closely if it's gonna be a bigger truck. But if it's not, then I'm more comfortable with that.
Yeah, that's fine. They've
Yeah.
Because it's binding not only on this particular proposed tenant, but anyone else who comes in the
Exactly,
future.
that's my
So
concern.
if you're,
Somebody in the future could end up with a tractor trailer there, and it's not gonna work, I don't think.
so if it's noted as a restriction, then it binds
Fine.
everybody.
Okay.
So I got just a quick question because I'm having a hard time visualizing what it's going to look like from 202. You know, as you're driving down 202 and you look across, you know, you see the slice, you see where the slice is. It's very nice. It presents well. How would this? I'm just having a hard time visualizing it. What it's going to look like from the road. Are we looking at the back of the building, the side of the building? What are we looking at?
no. So what's facing 202 is the front entry to the building. So
That's all I wanted to hear.
yeah,
Yeah. I was having a hard time looking at it.
you know
I'm
that
like,
the
I don't-
patio area
in the front.
is in the front.
Okay.
All right?
Perfect.
All right, good. We'll see
You
you
got a little
January
work to
9th.
do, and we'll see you.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
See you tonight.
All right, next we have Toll Brothers at Catherine Street. This is a town board referral. Patients, Catherine Street. How are you?
Good. How are you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board? For the record, David Cooper, partner with the law firm of Aaron and Steinmetz, here representing the petitioner, Toll Brothers, who is the contract vendee to purchase a portion of the Field Home Holy Comforter property with a proposal or a concept to redevelop a portion of that property with an 118-unit townhouse development and active adult community 55 and older to capture sort of the downsizer demographic. With me tonight, and then pardon us, but a lot of our team is on the DL tonight due to some illnesses, I guess, going around various offices. But we do have your core team with you tonight. So with me is Joe Rena, the project engineer, as well as Rob Dowd from Toll Brothers. We're here tonight on a referral from the town board. Toll Brothers petitioned the town board to amend the zoning map with respect to this site. The site is currently split zone in the R140 and then the RSP3 zone. Neither of those districts would permit the type of active adult townhouse use that we're contemplating. So the proposal would be to rezone the property to a RSP2 district. The RSP2 district allows specialized residential development, senior citizen, that's the name of the use, but that would allow this type of use. Just so you know that the RSP3, which is the current zoning for most of the site, allows multi-level nursing homes and assisted living and hospices, more intense senior living uses. That's not what's proposed here. As you may recall, several years ago, there was an approval for this portion of the site for a 102-unit assisted living facility, as well as 96 skilled nursing beds. And so different type of use. What we're looking to do is more of a townhome development for seniors and downsizers. The threshold determination before we kind of dive into any site plan and really a development plan for the site is for the town board at least to rezone the site or not. And so the town board is looking for your input on that initial question. Site plan review, of course, will follow if the site is rezoned. We have a concept plan that we're going to take you through tonight, but you'll see that there's not a lot of detail yet on that in terms of site plan issues because we're still working through the zoning. In terms of the secret lead agency, the town board has circulated its intent to serve as lead agency. I'm sure you probably have a notice before you, and the 30-day period is still pending. The town board, as the lead agency, will be reviewing the zoning and also a concept development plan so we can understand the potential impacts of rezoning the site. Joe can take you through the concept plan tonight because I'm sure that's what you want to take a look at tonight. But of course, our focus is at least at this point getting a positive recommendation back to the town board. and to the extent that this board is ready to at least not object to the town board serving as lead agency, that'd be a nice outcome for tonight as well. Two things to cover tonight. One is the zoning approach, which I'll get into in a second, and then we'll move to the concept plan that Joe can take you through. In terms of the zoning approach, as I said, we're proposing to rezone the entire site. The site itself is a 50.51 acre piece of the field home property. We're proposing to rezone that entire area. Hold on one sec. We'll pull it up. And as we're pulling it up, I got you. I got you. Okay, sorry. I threw Joe off. I think I didn't say we were going to go through this when we were prepping this morning. The proposal would be to rezone the entire area. Then we would eventually seek a subdivision to parcel out a 2.46 acre portion of the property, because the field hall building is on this portion that Toll Brothers is going to purchase. Toll Brothers initially, and we might have been before your board a year ago or so, when a couple of initial discussions about this project, Toll Brothers was initially looking at potentially reusing the field hall building as a clubhouse or some other use amenity for the townhome development. It turns out it's not going to work from a design perspective, from a construction perspective. It's not that building as it is won't really work with their proposal. And so what the proposal is now is to carve off that piece and then give it to the town for the town's use if they want to reuse it. Right now, I think the last proposal was to preserve the front of the building, potentially reuse it for offices. But what Toll Brothers would do is provide a $150,000 payment towards maintenance of that building, so that the town can figure out what to do. That would probably cover 3 to 5 years of maintenance, so the town has time to figure out what to do with it. But in terms of the townhome development, we would parcel that piece off so that it's not part of the overall project. With respect to the project, we would be developing a portion of what's would be a 48.05 acre parcel. And you'll be able to see that a little bit more. If you want to pull up the concept plan, that'll show you. Yeah. There we go. So the portion that's in green there and that's highlighted, that's the 48.05 acre portion. And then you can see that the field hall building down there at the bottom as well. So what I'll do is let me turn it over to Joe to take you through just the concept plan. And we're happy to answer any questions initially. I mean, again, we're focused on the zoning, but we're happy to talk about, to the extent that we know about the site and the site development approach. Happy to answer those questions, as well as any questions you may have about the proposal to rezone.
Okay, hello again, everyone. So, I had up before an aerial view of the site as it exists now. Again, this is the field hall building here to the south. This is the boundary of the site right here. This is the practice soccer field area, which is right off of Catherine Street. The site as it exists today is mostly a wooded site, as you could see, as you saw in the aerial. Again, this is the field hall building at this end. There are some open areas on the site that are from the soccer field, the original septic systems for the project, for the field hall, and for the Holy Comforter, which have now since been abandoned, and now it's all on public sewers. At the eastern portion of the site, there's a water course that runs. That's a perennial water course. It's running all the time, parallel to the eastern boundary, which is right here. And there's some surrounding wetland areas that have been flagged and have been verified by the town consultant. We're asking them to come back out again to look at another area, but that's shown here. This is the control boundary for the wetland that's been delineated and verified so far. So the concept plan, again, it's 118 townhouse-style units. The main entry point is just north of the field hall, which is right here. You've got a divided entryway with a median down the middle, a planted median. As you first come into the site, dead ahead of you is the amenities building, which will be the community center for the site, as well as a swimming pool is the proposed amenity there, and a small park-like setting around that. The units are laid out in such a way that as you follow through the site, they're on either side there. There's a dead-end cul-de-sac here, and then you continue out, and it empties out again. And at a northern entrance, which is a two-way entrance at the back onto Catherine Street. The darker shaded area here is the wetland and buffer area. I'm sorry, that's the wetland area, and there is some buffer that comes out into here. A portion of the roadway, this little portion of the roadway here, would be within the buffer. There are stormwater management facilities or stormwater basins, which are going to be pocket wetlands. There are two of them, one here and one here. At this point, we've already involved the DEP. We've been out with the DEP. We've done testing with them. They've done their water course determination. So we've already kicked that off. So we're working on a good basis as far as what our stormwater management facilities will look like. The nature of the site is it slopes from the highest point, which is here, towards the north. So as you make your way around through the site, you're in a downward slope. There's going to be a retaining wall, a couple of retaining walls on the site, but the main one is going to be this one here, which will make up the difference in grade necessary to provide reasonable backyards for these units here and these units here. That's the extent of the concept plan. If you have any questions on that, do you have any questions on that?
Have you seen this letter from the county?
No.
We received a letter, I assume the board members have seen it, from the Westchester County Planning Board, dated today, which talks about before we get to the site-specific issues and the environmental issues, it talks about the rezoning decision and the implications of that decision. Should the town board take that approach that you're suggesting, they are saying that it would eliminate or reduce the opportunity for a varied mix of housing in Yorktown. And they're suggesting that a non-restricted multifamily zone be considered instead. I think I'm phrasing it correctly. You can take a look at it. They cite some information that they have done, that they have studied about housing needs in the county and in the area, and I think that the RSP 2, I believe, is too restrictive in their minds. So I think that's an important consideration, especially for our board as we make recommendations back to the town board as to what course of action they should take. I'm not sure it would change anything on the site if there's an appropriate zone that's not as restrictive. It would enable the objectives that the county talks about to be accomplished, and that's a consideration. I think it's fairly important.
Yeah, absolutely.
So thank you for bringing that up. We've not seen the letter. I think I guess it's two separate considerations. One is obviously the market that this is targeted to, they're going to be first floor or ground floor masters. That's a 55 and older market, downsizer market. I understand what the county is saying, and I guess part of it is what the town wants in of itself. And one of the benefits, of course, of 55 and older is that there aren't impacts on the school district itself. That being said, I mean, certainly we could will let us go through the comment letter, but just so the board knows, look, the proposal here is for an active adult community, and so the vision is whether or not you call it RSP2 or not, ultimately this type of product is going to be marketed and most likely sold to 55 and older. But
I understand that. Of course, the decision for the town board ultimately is whether or not that type of zone is appropriate. Does it advance the town's interest? Is it in compliance with our comprehensive plan objectives, and things like that? I think those are issues that, as a planning board, we can discuss and weigh in on as well.
Well, what do they consider restrictive? The age. The age?
I'm just reporting out, reciting what what Westchester Planning Commission is talking about.
Why would you be objective to a 55 plus? I don't understand it.
What I would say is, and I agree with you, absolutely, the planning board should be evaluating it and should be making a recommendation back, particularly since the county has brought it up. But since we're given the opportunity to address it, there's an RSP2 district on your books for a reason, right? The town,
I understand.
The town board felt, look, we want to attract this type of housing into the community, as well as diversifying the housing stock by that type of townhome and senior housing. So it would still, I would submit to the county, this type of project would still further the goal of diversifying the type of housing available. And also, as you could see in our petition, we did go through your comprehensive plan, and there is discussions about diversifying housing and keeping people age in place in the community. So it's an important part of the housing puzzle. And so what I would submit is that just because this is the RSP2 does not mean that it's inconsistent with your comprehensive plan, with what the town is looking to do, and frankly, that it won't provide a significant benefit to the town as envisioned right now.
You want to weigh in on this one? Please? Thanks, John.
So with respect to the zoning, that's the question, right? At present, so that's a very important question, and the board should be dealing with that as well. And certainly, we can gather information from the comprehensive plan and other sources for you to evaluate that question, and and history and so forth. And this site has plenty of history to it. It has an approval on it. I think that will work into this. So without glossing over the use issue, which I think is an important one, and also one of the first ones you should be grappling with, I want to point out that there's many issues on this project to be grappling with. I have a question for these folks in terms of there's a lot of emphasis on concept plan, and I wonder why, and I'd like to get a little bit of background on that. But my point being in that regard is that when you are looking at a site-specific rezone by request from an applicant, there should be a good site review in terms to prove out the requested use. And so the idea of a concept plan brings to mind that later on, after the rezoning is, say, it's approved, that somehow or another there's sleeves being rolled up and we get a design now with unit count that we hadn't really seen before, and that's problematic from several standpoints. So I would recommend that in this project, given its complexity on a lot of levels, that the board requests to be involved in the site, the concept plan, or whatever you want to call it, throughout the rezoning process in a manner that is a little bit more detailed than you may expect from some of the other rezones that we have seen for a variety of reasons. So I think my answer to you is The use is certainly a big question, and we can bring forth some information, for you to develop your opinion on that to give to the town board. That will take a little bit of time. But also, this is a project that I think has, for this board, implications and importance that should be looked at through this rezoning process more in depth than, occasional referrals might warrant. So I think you should request that as my recommendation to you. If you're looking at it on that close a level, all of those things I think will flesh out including the use situation. So,
Okay.
and I hope that was a
Yes, thank
clear
you.
enough and complete enough answer for you.
Always.
And let me answer that, because I didn't want to put short shrift on the site plan review or the concept plan. I was really leading off on that because here we are standing before a planning board that's used to looking at detailed plans with respect to engineering, et cetera. And before Toll Brothers can put that type of pen to paper and give you those 6, 7, 10 plan sets to look at, the zoning needs to be in place. We fully expect a full-blown review of the development as well as the zoning. In fact, in our EAF, we provided a long-form EAF as well as an extended Part 3 already with a parking and traffic analysis, assuming 118 units. Actually, interestingly enough, assuming 118 units that are not age-restricted, which is a lot more impactful than what this would be, a fiscal impact analysis, as well as any other reports that this board or the town board wants before they complete the secret process. I didn't mean, when I kept calling it a concept plan, I was just trying to be cautious. It's not saying, hey, look, here's our site plan, guys, just, accept it and move on. But absolutely, we're here to dive into the development itself. I just wanted to be sort of cautious to say, look, we're not going to have a full-blown SWIP until, we're actually into the site plan process.
Understood. Thank you. So I think we're going to need more information from John and Robin before we move on, so we can dig into the details. Once we get that, I'm sure we'll be back, and we'll take a deep dive.
What type of information are you looking for, so we can get ahead of it and get you some?
John's going to go through. Excuse me.
I feel like I want to turn around and talk to
Yeah,
David.
just
But
It's not used to you being up there. It's very
it's
strange.
many of the things that David had mentioned. All of the things in the comprehensive plan, whether it's apparently opposed or apparently it's supportive, because there's a lot of things in the comprehensive plan. We'll bring that forward to you, and I think we'll be able to give you a clear picture of what the comprehensive plan is saying about these types of uses and their locations. Also, any other things that we have in terms of the history of the project, which will also help, I believe, inform the use, the selected use here, because the property does have kind of quite a long history. So, but those kinds of things, all of the sort of institutional knowledge that we have available to us that we can collate to you, so it's in a digestible format.
John, is there also any
I
way
have
to
a
get
question.
hold
John,
of
don't
that
go
report?
away. John, come back. Do you guys have a breakdown of our housing types in town? In other words, what percentage of housing is single-family detached? What is under this zone and that zone?
Yeah, we can get that. We'd probably have to do a little work pulling that together, but it's available.
Is that what the county has done?
The county probably has some.
Well, they've done some report. I would really see if we can get our hands on that.
The county has plenty of information. Whether or not they know where it is sometimes is another story. But they have been staffing up, from the downsizing that they went through. So they do have information. I don't know if they have that particular information. We can certainly put that together for you.
I would like to see what report they're referring to, though.
Yeah, we'll to the extent that we can get it from them, we will.
Okay.
Thank you.
Rich,
All right.
I've got a question, Rich.
Yeah.
In your beginning of your presentation, the only existing feature that I'm aware of that's on the property that we're discussing is a ball field.
Right, the practice field, yes.
And I don't see a ball field in what you're proposing. Is there any proposal for replicating that ball field, either on the site or off-site?
Well, not replicating it. I'm not sure that the town actually would want to replicate it. It's a 7v7.
I didn't mean replicate, but I mean have a ball field.
No,
provide a ball field.
so no, there isn't room on this site to provide a in-kind practice field. But what Toll Brothers is proposing to do, initially they proposed to offer $75,000 to Park and Rec. We've been in discussions with them. This is today. Yeah. Yeah, right, initially, so now it's 100,000 that they've asked for to use towards other programming that they would need. The field itself it's a rented field from the owner. The lease itself I think expires in 2 years. I was on the WYSL website up until a couple of years ago. My kids also played in the WYSL. That field is listed as a 7v7 field that hasn't been used or scheduled for any games in a while. And I know there's no formal parking lot there, so I'm not sure that the recreating that use is what the Park and Rec Department's looking for anyway.
So I'm very vocal on this. And I do appreciate that you guys are willing to work on it. I know you came up an additional 25,000, but there has to be some kind of way where we could provide the amenity to our kids and still get your project going. Because honestly, to be quite honest, I'm fond of the project. I'm stuck on that part. And so I think, and you committed the last time that we were going to have some more discussions just with me personally. I'm speaking for myself, but it is a significant issue for me because I'm here for the kids. So, sorry.
Sure.
You're right. So just to that point, remember that this is a type 1, possibly subject to an EIS. Certainly, as David has alluded to, you can ask for, and the town board can ask for, Recreation Commission can recommend and ask for certain reports and studies. One of them, I think, should be what the state of the recreation is in town. To the extent that whether this field is being used now or not, it could be in the future. There is history to it. It used to be, as I recall, used for adult soccer pickup games and things like that. So it has potential uses. The point being that you can ask for a written report that goes through the needs of recreation in the town, potential future needs, all of that evaluation to give you the backbone to make a good recommendation to the town board, and eventually for the town board to settle on whatever the mitigation for the loss of, if in fact it is lost. So.
I mean, just as an idea, possibly keeping a practice field there at some point or redesigning, I don't know, might provide a pleasant distraction for the active senior people that may be living there. I mean, they might like to watch little kids running around. I know I would. I don't know. I mean, it could actually be an amenity. And still providing something wonderful for the children in our town. It's part of your concept plan.
Yeah, question. John, this may be for you. Who currently owns the field hall? That's the building that's on the land, right?
Yes.
So who currently owns that?
I believe that they are in contract, so Field Home Foundation or whatever entity it is still owns it. Still has office there.
So is it their intent to give that to the town? Is that what I heard?
Yes.
Say?
Yes. And the original approval had the main part of the building, a large portion of the building being demolished, being renovated to save the front of the building, so that the frontage there, which has all the design to it, would be saved and then reused. That was the original approval. Toll Brothers has another idea on it. So that's another thing that, there's all sorts of evaluations you can make on that. The state of the building. There are design firms that specialize in adaptive reuse and things of that nature and can evaluate it to see what potential there is for different uses. I mean, a whole host of things that you can be looking at.
Sergio, you keep the front. You make that the front of the stadium. You put the field behind it.
I got a question. I got a question for the attorney.
That's all I care about.
Excuse me. You said the field is leased.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Who would be the landlord?
Same owner is the.
Okay, so by the time this thing is ready for shovel in the ground, the lease will be over. 2 years. You always are over. You don't renew the lease. They have no right to the property.
That's correct.
Bingo.
That's correct. Yeah. And
the discussion is mute.
Yeah, we recognize that. And look, for sure, I guess you could conceptually say, look, guys, there's going to be no field in 2 years, so it's not an impact. But that's not how we want to
If I was
approach
the
it.
landlord, that's what if that's going to hold me up, that's what I would think.
No, and that's why the applicant has offered the $100,000 towards the rec department to say, look, even though this is not a long-term field, eventually it potentially would fall out of use by the town. We do recognize that there's some benefit there that could even in the short term be lost, and so we're looking to mitigate that impact.
I think we got John again.
Backup information. Just also that the original intent of rebuilding that field, because it was across the
I
road,
remember.
was
It was
for
Joe's plan.
long-term, very long-term use by the town for the field. So
Right.
the approval, both approvals, had that in mind. Whether or not the lease went out, so many years and so on. So I'm sure there's options in there and things like that. But the original intent was to keep that field for quite a long time. Now things may have changed by recreation needs. That's what needs to be looked at.
Joe, how long ago was that plan? The field home.
We did, I think we had gotten approval in 2014.
Right, but there was one before that.
Yeah.
That started like 2000, 2001.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll see
All right, we'll be in touch. Okay, next on the agenda, we have 670 East Main Street. This is a pre-preliminary discussion.
Squeezing 2 pounds in a 1 pound bag.
Preliminary.
Good evening, members of the board. I'm Doug Hahn with Hahn Engineering. The owners are with us, Anthony and Tom, representing 670 East Main Street. We are here for a pre-preliminary discussion. The application is for 5-unit, 3-bedroom townhouses. It's located between Old Jefferson Valley Road and East Main Street. It is in the R3 zoning district on about a half an acre lot. There are a number of variances that will be required, which include floor area ratio,
Wow.
2 pounds in a
front
1
yard,
pound bag.
side yard, rear yard, and building separation. It's an existing non-conforming building, and they are proposing to remove an existing single-family with a detached garage. We are here for preliminary comments. Any
Drive by it every day.
what?
I drive by that every day. I know that.
Let me ask you, if this is built, will it be market rate or will it be offered to a certain segment?
I believe they want to keep it and rent it out and lease it. I don't believe that they want to sell.
That's not the question. Oh, you want it as a rental unit?
I believe so. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a lot of apartments in a half-acre zone.
Yeah.
It's a long stretch.
Well, how big's the property right next to it has the same
I believe,
essential layout, right?
I believe, and there was 8 units on there, 4 and 4.
4 and 8, I believe, 12 units across right behind us. So our building would back their 4 or 5 units that they have there. We're backing right up to them.
How big is that site? You know? You know how big that one is?
Their lot,
No, that whole site where those next to you.
they're 12 units there.
But I don't know. We don't know the size of the lot.
Just to compare what what Bill is talking. How much?
Both of those are kind of triangular, getting larger.
Was this in front of us some time ago?
Yeah.
This property? What happened with it then? I don't recall.
I'm sorry?
Do you recall what the outcome was?
You look.
Tom's gonna get mad.
You looked at it a couple times, I think on 2 occasions, and the applicant never really put it forward.
Yeah.
The last one, I think, was not as simple as this one. It had, you know, a cluster of 3, a cluster of 2, and, you know, another cluster of 2 or something like that.
You know, the main concern I have is that that intersection that this comes out to is a tough intersection. You've got cars going every which way coming at the end of Lee Boulevard onto East Main. You got all the traffic coming off the Taconic at different times of the day. So I think that's the biggest challenge for me. I see you've got on the street behind up is just an exit only. Is that correct?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the biggest concern. I think it fits in. It's consistent with the use. It's right across the street from a shopping area.
It's almost like the entrance should be reversed.
I was thinking perhaps, yeah.
If you exited onto
Main Street.
Onto Main Street, might be better served rather than trying to cross traffic to get into the site. If you're heading north or northeast, you've got to make a cross-traffic left-hand turn. If you went off on that secondary road, it'd be easier to get into the site. I mean, if I were living there, that's what I would do. But if you're going to restrict it to only exits, you're going to defeat the purpose.
Yeah.
We can look into that. I don't know the exact reason why that's exit only right now. I'm kind of filling in for somebody, so, but we can definitely look into that.
Well, that person's not here, so we can decide.
So
If it works, I'm all for it.
So clarify it for me. I'm just, you want to build this as a rental unit. You don't want to build it as a condos. You don't want to build it as for sale.
So I believe we want to build it as 5.
You got it.
You got it.
Go into the mic, or Oz is gonna get upset from the back.
I'm Anthony Genovese. I think we want to build it as 5 separate units, so we could sell them later, eventually. But ultimately, we would like to keep them as rental. But we don't want to just restrict it to that. If we build them as townhouses, we could sell 1 or 2 off if need be, and do it that way. I don't think we want to be just restricted
The ownership
to
is
I don't think that's the
issue.
what
lot, right?
is that important to us, Bill?
Well, we want. I would like to know how that thing is going to work out. If it's going to be for sale, or it's going to be for rental. It's part of the approval process, I would think.
I think it would be appropriate to do a site visit out there,
Okay.
and if you could stake out the 4 corners of the building
Absolutely.
and the location of that exit and entrance, if you could, you know, center line. Doesn't have to be both sides. If we can get that, with Robin to get out there into the field and take a look, because this is a lot, and I know this has come in front of us a few times. But yeah, the rest of the area seems to be in relatively the same situation. So let's get that set up. We'll take a visit out there, and
Yeah, we'd have to find out how many square feet, how many bedrooms, all that stuff.
it's on here.
Have to go.
Yeah, it's on. It's up here.
Hey, I can't see that.
No, I know. You can see that anyway.
Go back to the variances that you're going to be requesting. For side, rear, and front yard setbacks, is that
Yeah,
accurate?
it's a floor area ratio, front yard, side yard, rear yard, and building separation.
So, I don't want to speak for the zoning board, but it sounds to me like you could design your way out of those issues.
Well, a lot of them, if you look, there's a small triangular shape in the center. Those are our setbacks. That's our building envelope right there. So, it is definitely a tricky
Right.
site, and anything really that goes in there would require
Tough lot.
those 3 at least. It would definitely at least need
Oh,
front, rear,
yeah.
and side.
Yeah, look at that. That's this.
Huh.
We got anything else at this point?
I believe the neighbors got sideline relief as well, so we were kind of basing our design off what was approved from them. That's how we got to that. And then we're actually we're giving more sideline setbacks than is existing at the moment. The garage is about 4 feet off the road as it is, So we're actually pushing it back and we're not trying to use that, we're not trying to go after that foundation and utilize that. We understand that we definitely need more than that. So that's why we were hoping that we could work it out, that if we pushed it back, that maybe we could get this envelope to help out that rear vision from driving down Old Jefferson
Have you made
Valley.
application to the zoning board?
I don't believe we have yet.
So you'd have to make an application for a building permit and then have it denied and then go to the zoning board of appeals?
I don't believe we have. This is our first step.
Okay.
Is that the process?
Yeah, well, yeah, because you're appealing a denial, so.
Okay.
I think it sounds to me like it's a little bit premature, but certainly don't mind giving you my opinion of what we're looking at. But if you were to gain that relief from the setbacks, then you're obviously okay to go. And if you don't, then chances of seeing you again are going to be slim. So
What do you think
Yeah, I
the
mean,
best
just to
course?
let you know the process. So
What do you think the best course of action?
Regarding?
To try to get the
The
variance
process.
not to the
first.
zoning board yet. So
Yeah, that's true.
So most often, you guys will
They're gonna
review
ask
the
us.
project and get to a level where you believe it is actually feasible. Then you will refer it to the zoning board with a memo of your recommendations.
Favorable.
That's the most typical that we've seen. And of course, even if it went over today, they would probably want your input on it to begin with, so.
So I would say get the building staked out. See the
We'll walk
sight
it,
line,
take a
or
look
the center line for both driveways.
It'll be easy
We'll meet
walk
out
for me
there.
and Aaron. We know where it is.
Right? All right. Thank you
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Take care. All right, Robin, do you want to talk about our site walk this morning?
What, for this?
No, we did a site walk this morning. Should we talk about that now, or is that in?
What did you do?
We went out to the solar farm. We actually went
Which
to
one?
Newcastle, the,
Dell Avenue? Dell Avenue?
yeah. We went to the neighboring property.
oh,
Yes.
Let's hear.
So Robin brought a shotgun and she fended off. I thought she was going hunting. So I have to tell you,
was the owner walking his dog and
no, but after being out there, one, you can't see clearly the solar, the.
You
the
can.
Yeah, it is not going to be easy to screen it from the vantage point. The property owners going to great lengths to kind of buffer themselves from the outside world. It really is screened. It really is. When we're out and we went down around the hill, I said it feels, if you didn't know where you were, you feel like you were in the middle of nowhere. It was incredible. You really were. It felt like you were in the middle of the Adirondacks. It was incredible.
Now you know why they don't want to see a solar farm.
Yeah, right.
Well, and so we went through, but you can.
So they can be seen, the property can see the arrays, and so the applicant has to go back and do some more work then, right?
Yeah, if they can get it to work. It's at such an angle. And they said if they subdivided the property, if they put an accessory structure up, or,
That's where the line of sight diagram will really
Oh, listen.
be useful.
And it was snowy.
Because in that triangle, you can move for instance, the screening back to have the
screening could be
effect
at the
of greater
property
height,
line.
right?
Yeah.
So the possibility in this case is whether or not the neighbor will allow some measures to be taken on his own property to help screen it, because it would be probably more feasible to do so closer to the vantage
Oh,
point.
clearly from what we
Yeah.
saw out there. Yeah. I mean, you really were, and we heard sounded like someone was yelling. And we're looking around. There's no one down there. There's a cell antenna, a cell tower, and there were two guys up there working on it.
Oh.
You saw them
right at the, yeah.
over the top of the trees. But beautiful. I mean, incredible piece of property.
One of the questions that I had after our last review of that was, there was a reference to it has to be screened from residential properties.
Yes.
And my question was, what is the residential property? What is the definition of that? What did
At what point?
the people who created that regulation mean? And one of them, I think, participated in that was John, and I don't know what members of the town board were serving when that language got written. So I think, to be clear, so that we understand, are we talking about from the residential property? Does that mean anywhere on the property, or does that mean from the residence that's on the property?
From the house or from the end
Right,
of the property?
so that's a critical distinction that I think we need to understand. And I'm not advocating it's one or the other, I'm just saying the definition of that.
Is it from the kitchen window or from the property line?
Yeah, because if you stand at one edge of the
Yeah,
property,
sure.
and hang on to the fence and you can
Yeah.
see it, that's a little bit different than if you're just walking around in the backyard, or if is it restricted to being on your deck or I don't know.
So who answers that question?
Whoever drafted the language that's in.
Can't we get an interpretation of how it reads now
That's what
from
I was.
council?
I was suggesting that to John at one point, and I don't know.
How about
who
the
makes-
wordsmith in the back there? We can.
Yeah, I don't know if it comes from our attorney or if the attorney then goes to the people who drafted the language.
I think
Original intent.
Right.
I think the issue really is what's written there now. Certainly, the intent was to make reasonable accommodation that you can't see it from most residential properties that are adjacent to wherever you're doing this development, whatever development you're doing. But the language that's written is what's really going to be telling us what we can and can't do. So I would say that those particulars that you cited, which are very good because it depends on, for instance, how big of a piece of property that you have, right?
Right.
If you have to walk, half a mile, is that a reasonable request? That's a good question. But I don't think that during the writing of it, that kind of particular was, really well considered.
No, I understand. And the other point that I made, I think I might have made it to Aaron during our discussions of this, is if the townhouse project had gone forward, there's absolutely no regulation that would
About
prohibit
size,
the owners
yeah.
of the townhouses to put solar panels on every roof.
Right.
And you probably have more solar panels than you would have
In this
than what we're talking about now.
And no requirement whatsoever
No
to
requirement
screen or
whatsoever.
even buffer. And the practice of the town has long been to not really be concerned about screening like uses to like uses.
Right.
Commercial to residential, yes, but residential to residential or commercial to commercial, no.
No, but my question is, you can now lease your roof to a solar company.
Yes.
Does
Yes.
that make it a commercial use? Because he being a solar company, can lease the rooftops throughout my whole neighborhood.
Right.
And put panels on every single roof.
Yeah.
And I can look out my front window at my neighbor across the street and has solar panels on top of his house. But this guy can't look across 15 acres of land and see one solar panel.
Right.
I
I
think
don't think there's.
I think the real answer to your question is if we have to interpret and apply a statute that's given to us by the town board. Okay, if we make a decision that that statute has a certain meaning and that we want to deal with the impacts of it, the applicant either accepts it and then that becomes the meaning of the statute in that particular case, or the applicant challenges it and then a court will say to us, your meaning is not what was intended. Can we go back to the drafts people and say, what did you mean here? Yeah, we can get that information from them. But ultimately, I think, and maybe our attorney can tell me that...
I can tell you some of my thoughts. If you look through your zoning
Microphone.
If you look through your zoning ordinance, you'll see all sorts of descriptions of screening. Sometimes it says reasonably screened, sometimes suitably screened, sometimes just screened, and this says fully screened. Now, the way I've always understood it, and this is going back some 40 years, I always thought of a screen as something where it's not a block. It's not a complete and total block. It's something that sort of obstructs parts of something so you don't have a massive view of something. That's the way I've always looked at screening. So what does fully screening mean? I don't know. I can't imagine it means blocked, because the example that Aaron brought up.
Still see through a tree.
Right, and
Or if
Aaron
the-
brought
or if
up
the
a
wind
very
blows.
good point. If somebody lives above someone else, they're going to look down on it, and how do you screen in that instance? So I think the feedback that we had received, our office had received, was that nobody wanted to see these things. It was mostly the ground mounted. It was not really too much concern about the rooftop, but it was the ground mounted. People didn't want to see a bunch of poles and solar panels from the street. That was really the bulk of the feedback we received. There was not so much feedback about side to side or yard to yard.
But as usual, the details aren't the details. The details become the major issues.
Right.
And
Yeah.
This apparently is the only topic that is of concern. And so we're dealing with a detail that now becomes a major issue for us to deal with. And I mean, I understand your points about, our interpretation, but I'm just looking further down the argument that says, well, now you're interpreting language that you can easily go to the source of that language and question the what their intent was.
It's in the zoning code, right?
Yeah.
So who's the ZEO in town?
Building inspector.
So we'd have to go to the building inspector for an interpretation.
Or
The
a
zoning.
neighbor could go, or the applicant could go.
So is that a suggested path at this point?
And we refer that issue out?
It's not our decision to make.
I think the challenge you have is you're saying it's an interpretation. If you have two people, there's going to be two different interpretations.
Well, yeah. Well, once somebody splits a single hair on the issue, which I think has been done, then you start splitting more hairs. So, for instance, the definition, as Jim was alluding to, of screening itself. Does it have a height to it? Does it have a distance to it? I mean,
Or does it mean you can't see through it?
Yeah, or does it, correct. So there's a whole definitional process you can get into. So it can be, this can really get to be a little bit damning, or you make your interpretation and see where it comes out.
All right, so that's something we
Really
have to think
belongs where? Back here?
It really belongs here.
But is that the legal path?
And I think it sounds like somebody's going to win and someone's going to lose.
Yeah.
And whoever loses is going to have to do what they have to do.
Well, that's kind of what I was alluding to. About
I just
Cool.
don't see
No.
any way
Yeah.
around it. I mean, I have to say that the comment that, are we talking about killing a whole project because somebody can see something when they go walk their dog was a really appropriate question, because that's really what it comes down to.
And I find it hard to believe that was the intent of the authors of this to accomplish. I just don't.
I think it's when you're sitting, when you're sitting in your kitchen having a cup of coffee.
It's a legitimate concern, but I don't know that the language represented the level of concern that.
Let's remember they stopped a multi-billion-dollar dam project because of little fish. So,
Snail darter.
Snail darter. And the spotted owl came someplace too. You remember that one? And listen, there's bats around, and we can't took trees down at the same time of the year. What, April to?
That's right.
That's right.
I love those bats. They're all around my house. I don't have any mosquitoes.
Okay.
That's why.
I'm telling you.
All right, do I have a motion to close the meeting?
Motion.
Thank you. Second?
Yes.
All's in favor?
Aye.
And I do want to mention, Robin had a walking stick. All right?
I thought it was a rifle.
No, well, she had that too.
Good night, good night,
The
good
rifle
night.
was- She had like a, good night, Tom.